lashes out at U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, calling for someone else to be the top negotiator with Pyongyang. The North accuses him of being the cause of stalled denuclearization talks.
President Moon Jae-in visits the site of a major joint business project in Turkmenistan, touting the potential of economic ties with the Central Asian country.
The Bank of Korea lowers this year's growth forecast for the country amid falling exports and tepid inflation. The central bank also holds its key interest rate steady at 1.75%.
South Korean football star Son Heung-min fires Tottenham Hotspur into the semi-finals of the European Champions League. His double against Manchester City gives the London club the golden ticket to the Final Four. NEWSCENTER begins now. Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Noaram.
And I'm Han-dan. Thanks for joining us. The Bank of Korea has lowered Korea's economic growth forecast for this year to 2.5%, citing sluggish exports and investment.
Yes, the central bank has also kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 1.75% for April. Ko Ryun-hee starts us off.
The Bank of Korea on Thursday lowered South Korea's economic growth forecast for this year to 2.5%. This is down from its earlier projection of 2.6% back in January. As for why, the central bank pointed to two main reasons.
The BOK has lowered its growth forecast for this year by 0.1 percentage points. This is because exports and investment were more sluggish than expected in the first quarter. We expect the growth trend to gradually recover in the future, thanks to the expansion of fiscal spending and improvement in exports and investment figures.
The announcement comes after Korea's outbound shipments decreased on-year for 4 consecutive months, mainly due to poor chip sales. Facilities investment also dropped by more than 10% on-month in February. An expert pointed to domestic reasons for the low investment by companies.
Korean economy is still tied up with fairly heavy regulations, the government regulations and local government regulations as well. Also, the rising labor cost is another concern. And as you know, we have increased the minimum wage fairly rapidly for the last 2 or 3 years.
On a brighter note, consumption expected to grow moderately by 2.5%. The BOK expects 140,000 new jobs to be added this year, up from last year's figure of 100,000. Reflecting the slowing overall economic growth, the Bank of Korea on Thursday also kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 1.75% for April. The central bank has maintained its key rate at the same level since November last year, when it raised the rate by 0.25 percentage point. When the BOK explained the background behind the decision, it pointed to the low inflation rate. Korea's consumer price index fell to within the 0 to 1% range, mainly due to the drop in prices of agricultural and petroleum goods. The central bank predicts the index will rise by 1.1% this year. Analysts added this move comes after many major countries such as the United States affirmed their commitment to being patient with monetary policies. The Bank of Korea added that it will keep its accommodative monetary policy because the demand and inflationary pressure isn't that great. Ko Ryun-hee, Arirang News.
Turning now to the renewed tensions between North Korea and the U.S. North Korea's foreign ministry has slammed U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's latest remarks on North Korea's denuclearization, saying Pyongyang wants to talk with another figure, not Pompeo, for nuclear dialogue.
The ministry went on to threaten that no one will be able to predict how things would unfold on the Korean peninsula if the U.S. doesn't remove the obstacles that stand in the way of denuclearization by the end of this year. Our Lee Ji-won reports.
North Korea's foreign ministry said Thursday that it wants someone other than Mike Pompeo to join the next round of denuclearization talks. The North Korean Central News Agency published comments Thursday from a foreign ministry official in charge of U.S. affairs, saying Pompeo is, quote, blabbering thoughtless words. He said Pompeo is wrong in his interpretation of Kim Jong-un's recent comments about giving the U.S. until the end of the year to change its stance. Pompeo, he said, is stupidly trying to shrug off that pressure by claiming the North simply wants to finish the working-level talks by that time. According to North Korea watchers, Pompeo did not say that publicly, but may have done so behind the scenes. The official said it's unclear if Pompeo meant to interpret Kim's words that way, but called it an extremely dangerous move. He went on to reference Pompeo agreeing in Congress earlier this month that the North Korean leader is a tyrant, which he said was Pompeo revealing what a low person he is. He then reiterated what Kim Jong-un said, that by the end of the year, the U.S. has to get rid of the obstacles in the way of the North denuclearizing, otherwise no one knows how things might change. He claimed that Pompeo is always putting a wet blanket on things when they are going well, and he's concerned that future talks won't work out. This is believed to be a reference to what the North's Vice Foreign Minister Chang-son said last month, that Pompeo and National Security Advisor John Bolton had stopped Trump from being flexible on sanctions. But despite the criticism of Pompeo, the official emphasized that it's a good thing their leader is on good terms with President Trump. This is seen as North Korea wanting to continue the dialogue, but an expert says it's not a good strategy.
It won't work. Ultimately, Trump will have to listen to his aide. But what the North thinks is that the top-down approach will work, so it's blaming all the failure on Trump's aides while putting its hope in Trump.
It's unlikely, according to the expert, that the U.S. will put someone else in charge of the talks. The North will come back to the table with or without him so long as the conditions are right. 이지원, 아리랑 뉴스.
Meanwhile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un increasingly appears to be placing his focus back on the regime's military activities. Following his visit to an Air Force unit on Tuesday, Kim supervised a test firing of what the North called a new type tactical guided weapon. Our Oh Jung-hee talked to some experts for Kim's possible motives.
North Korea has developed a new tactical guided weapon and Kim Jong-un supervised the test fire of it. That's according to Pyongyang's state-run Korean Central News Agency on Thursday. The test fire was conducted by the regime's Defense Science Academy. Kim Jong-un says that having this new weapon means a lot in upping the regime's combat power. It's not clear what exactly this new tactical guided weapon is, but Pyongyang's media says the test fire was conducted in various modes of firing at different targets, and the weapon peculiarly guides flight and loads a powerful warhead. Seoul's military says it's still analyzing the new weapons test, but military officials say the regime's test fire on Wednesday was not detected on its radar system, which means the missile flies on a low altitude and has a short range. Pundits believe it could be a short-range ground-to-ground precision-guided missile or a multi-purpose cruise missile, though more is to be analyzed after Pyongyang reveals photos or footage.
A guided missile can either be a ballistic missile or a cruise missile. But I believe that the North's new weapon would be a cruise missile. That's because ballistic missiles are banned by the international sanctions resolutions. And the missiles flew at a low altitude, not being detected through the radar.
On the day before the test, Kim reviewed a flight exercise at an Air Force unit. Kim made military-related visits for 2 days in a row this week after warning the U.S. last week that Pyongyang won't give in to sanctions. Observers say Kim wants to pressure Trump at low-key, but they also point out the North may be wanting to develop conventional weapons to the fullest to gain deterrence after halting its nuclear weapons development program. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Kim Jong-un's de facto chief of staff, Chang-son, is in Vladivostok this week amid speculation that the North Korean leader himself will go there next week for a summit with President Putin. Japan's Fuji News Network has aired footage taken on Wednesday that showed Kim Chang-son inspecting the area near Vladivostok Station. That's backed up by Japan's Kyodo News Agency, which reported a high-level North Korean official was in the city that also apparently Kim Chang-son Chang-son, citing Russian officials. A summit set for next week has been confirmed by the Russian Foreign Ministry, according to the Russian daily Izvestia. That paper said Putin will sit down with Kim before he travels to China for the One Belt and One Road summit set for April 26th and 7th. President Moon was at the site of a major joint business project in Turkmenistan, inspecting a petrochemical plant built by an international consortium led by Korean firms. The leaders of the two countries said that their bilateral economic cooperation could be even greater in the future. Our Son HeungMin reports.
An hour and a half out of the capital, Ashgabat, is a multi-billion-dollar petrochemical plant, the first of its kind in Turkmenistan and the largest in the whole of Central Asia. It was built by a global consortium led by Korea's Hyundai Engineering and LG International. President Moon Jae-in, accompanied by Turkmenistan's president, visited the plant as part of his state visit to the Central Asian country. The visiting South Korean leader praised the workers of the Korean firms for successfully building the complex with zero casualties or accidents in these 47 months of construction. And he thanked the firms for doing much more than just building the site. As promised during their summit on Wednesday, the leaders assured each other that this plant will not be the last project between the two nations. Hyundai Engineering says the complex has the capacity to churn out 6 million tons of natural gas annually, and that the petrochemical products from the plant can generate profits of up to $600 million for the Turkmen government every year.
A stroll out in the desert wilderness was an opportunity to witness the progress made by the two sides and also a chance to highlight the President Moon's new Northern Policy initiative that links the two sides closer than ever before. Son HeungMin, Arirang News, Kian.
The Korean government will submit an extra budget bill to the National Assembly next Thursday. As widely expected, the extra budget will focus mainly on enhancing people's safety and countering economic risks. Kim Min-ji has this report.
The third supplementary budget of the Moon Jae-in government will focus on matters related to people's safety as well as taking preemptive measures against economic uncertainties.
The government will submit the bill to the National Assembly on April 25th. We will also set a task force for the swift deliberation of the budget.
The extra budget will be used to provide support for those affected by the recent forest fires in Gangwon-do province. There will be measures to restore forests as well as plans to reinforce firefighting equipment and manpower. A portion will also be set aside to provide assistance to the southeastern city of Pohang, which was hit by the country's second-worst earthquake in 2017. The package includes special loans for small businesses in the region, as well as support for local infrastructure projects. The government will also tackle fine dust pollution. It plans to increase infrastructure that can better measure fine dust levels, as well as come up with ways to reduce emissions. It will also provide air purifiers in public facilities and masks for the underprivileged who work outdoors. Some of the budget will also be used to tackle downside economic risks, especially with dim prospects for the global economy and a slump in Korea's exports. Funding support will be provided for small companies, while customized measures will be devised for exporters. Although the exact size of the extra budget has not been revealed, it's not expected to exceed $6.2 billion. The government and the ruling party says the exact figure will be determined considering the country's tax revenue. The two sides are aiming to get the bill passed in May. The ruling party called for cooperation from the opposition bloc, saying they should put their political interests aside.
A number of opposition parties have been demanding the drawing up of one extra budget for natural disasters and another separate one for other purposes. But this is just seen as a political tactic. The budget is for the people's safety and to boost their livelihoods.
But deliberations are expected to be tough. While the opposition welcomed a helping hand for victims of natural disasters, they say they will not accept the budget being used to sway voter sentiment in the ruling party's favor ahead of next year's general elections. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Turning to some other domestic news now, South Korea is set to become a super-age society by the year 2026, when over a fifth of the population is expected to exceed the age of 65. A recent study has revealed that in order to prepare for this fast-approaching reality, the labour force of older generations must be expanded. Kim Da-mi has more.
The issue of South Korea's aging population is not a new one. In fact, the country is transitioning into a super-aged society faster than any other OECD member. By 2050, for every 100 people in the working age bracket, there will be 73 aged over 65, 20% higher than the OECD average. This means only 36% of the country's total population will be responsible for production and services. To prevent such crisis, the expert who conducted the study says the older generation must actively engage in economic activities.
Because the country's birth rate continues to drop, existing measures such as increasing alternative labor force with women and youth are neither enough nor effective. We have to make the best use out of the existing population.
He added that it is necessary to get rid of mandatory retirement solely based on a certain age and instead reconsider the country's social systems, such as categorizing those aged over 65 as elderly. He also stressed the need to further improve age-friendly labor policies and systems, such as providing lifelong education and allowing retirement based solely on workers' abilities. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Fine dust pollution has been troubling Korea for weeks now, and the Environment Ministry and related institutions have been gathering to examine the cause of fine dust and come up with solutions. Our Cha Sang-mi went to the symposium to hear them out.
It has become the new norm for Koreans to check the fine dust levels before heading out. The Environment Minister and climate experts gathered together on Thursday to get to the bottom of the problem.
The government is treating fine dust as a national disaster and is operating to protect our citizens' health with all-out efforts to cut fine dust emissions by 35.8% by 2022.
And to meet those steep emissions targets, the Environment Minister stressed the need to tackle pollution in dead zones, areas where emissions levels aren't monitored, such as ports, domestic boilers, and agriculture. In fact, pollutants from ships and ports seriously affect port cities like Busan. One cargo vessel emits the same amount of PM 2.5 particles as 500,000 trucks and the same amount of sulfur oxide as 50 million diesel cars. The Korea Transport Institute also raised the issue of old diesel cars and trucks on the road, saying that 4 out of 10 trucks on the road are over 10 years old.
It will be much more efficient if we set priorities according to the amount of emissions and run the reduction measures.
Dr. Shim Chang-sub from the Korea Environment Institute says despite falling emissions, fine dust isn't decreasing.
Recent climate change somewhat works against reducing fine dust because more rainy days are better for washing away the fine dust rather than the total amount of precipitation.
He also pointed to reduced average wind speed since 2012, which means less pollutants are blown away. Each ministry and institutions has a different approach to tackling fine dust levels, but they all have a common goal of reducing emissions and making South Korea and the world a less polluted, cleaner place. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Turning to some sports news now, and South Korean football star Son Heung-min has struck again for Tottenham Hotspur, scoring 2 crucial goals against Manchester City on Wednesday to take his club to the Champions League semi-final. Son is now the highest-scoring Asian player in the competition's history. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Epic is an understatement to describe the second leg of the Champions League quarterfinals matchup between Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester City. After scoring the lone goal in Tottenham's 1-0 win in the first leg, Son Heung-min didn't wait long to add more goals to his already impressive tally. After Man City got on the scoreboard after just 4 minutes, the South Korean international answered back with goals in the 7th and 10th minute, scoring a double in the first 10 minutes of the match. The match ended with Manchester City winning 4-3, but a 4-4 aggregate with Tottenham scoring 3 big away goals means the London club advanced to the semi-finals. Son, however, will not be able to play in the first leg of the semis, with a yellow in this match, the second he's accumulated in the quarterfinals. Despite that, the double gave Son his 19th and 20th goal in all competition this season, but also his 12th career goal in Champions League play. He surpasses Uzbekistani legend in Maxim Shatskikh, who scored 11 career Champions League goals during his career. Son scored his first ever Champions League goal back in 2014 while he was with Bayer Leverkusen in Germany's Bundesliga at the time. Fast forward less than 5 years, he's now the top scoring Asian player in Champions League history. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, media outlets from across the globe have been praising Son Heung-min's impressive performance in the Champions League quarter-final clash. Lee Min-sun has the details.
Son Heung-min's 2 goals and his performance in Wednesday night's UEFA Champions League quarter-final earned the South Korean forward plenty of praise from the international media. Son was on the main page on CNN's international website soon after the match was over, saying that it felt like the next chapter in an extraordinary story. CNN also ran a separate story calling him a superstar and reporting in detail on his profile, wide fan base, and his marketability based on his popularity. BBC selected Son as the player of the match with a rating of 8.53. And the UK-based Express newspaper called Son a shining light for Spurs, describing his second goal as superb, and saying that he played all evening harrying and harassing Manchester City. However, despite his contribution, Son will miss the first leg of Tottenham Hotspur's Champions League semi-final against Ajax as he received his 3rd European yellow card of the season during Wednesday's match against Manchester City. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Now, if you spend any time in Korea, chances are you'll come across some foreigners who can speak Korean quite fluently. However, there are also untold millions of people around the world who are quite proficient as well, with many of them having attended language classes here in Korea. Our Won Jung-hwan takes a look at where, why, and how they learned the language.
When King Sejong invented Hangul, the Korean alphabet and writing system, hoping to broadly benefit mankind, he couldn't have possibly have meant people on the other side of the planet. But centuries later, the Korean language is being taught to foreigners at institutes across the country, including the Korean Language Education Center at Seoul National University. The institute was established in 1969 to teach Korean language and culture to international students intending to learn Korean as a foreign language or their second language. Over 28,000 students from more than 90 countries have graduated from the programs laid out by the institute, and the program invites some 500 students every semester from overseas. In fact, the number of such students has been growing sharply over the past few years to the point where some are saying that the number of foreign students of Korean literature and language is similar to the number of locals. Experts say that such a phenomenon comes from the increasing number of foreign nationals who want to become Korean language specialists. But some say studying at language centers isn't always the best way to learn a language.
제 생각엔 혼자 이렇게 새로운 어휘와 뭐 새로운 문법을 혼자 공부하는 대신에 밖에서 예를 들어 뭐 한국어를 이렇게 원어민스럽게 한국 친구랑 공부하는 것이 더 좋을 것 같아요. 왜냐하면 이렇게 한국어로 말할 때 제가 원어민이 아니라서 아마 실수를 쉽게 할 수 있거든요. 그래서 이렇게 한국인이랑 이렇게 한국 친구랑 한국어를 이렇게 재미있게 공부하면 내가 아마 갑자기 뭐 실수를 하면 그 친구가 한국어를 어떻게 이렇게 맞게 말해야 하는지 그리고 어떤 단어를 뭐 어떤 상황에서 쓰면 더 좋을 건지 설명할 수 있어서.
And on top of that, even when watching their favorite shows in their free time, it was interesting to see how the students tried really hard to get used to the language.
드라마 너무 많이 좋아해요. 네, 그래서 거기 보고 그 보통 따라하는 것보다는 저는 속으로 듣고 만약에 이해 못한 부분이 있다면 다시 뒤로 가서 다시 보기. 그러니까 드라마 한 편을 1회를 제가 한 보통 2번에서 3번 정도 보는 것 같아요. 네, 다 완전히 이해할 때까지요.
So the lesson for those who want to be extra good at Korean, first, you shouldn't be scared of making mistakes. And second, most importantly, you should be ready to put in a lot of effort, proving once again that there's no shortcuts to language learning. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스.
Turning now to some entertainment news. K-pop stars have been taking over the global music industry, especially with the new BTS album going viral globally, knocking off shelves in the US and the UK. And the rising success of these K-pop groups is contributing a great deal to the Korean economy. To tell us more about their phenomenal achievements, Arirang's Son Heung-min joins us in the studio now. So Heung-min, let's start off with just how well these K-pop stars are performing overseas, not just on stages, but in sales as well.
Dan, yes, the very first K-pop stars that come to mind these days are BTS, as you know. And the 7-member group have been smashing record after record. They have had massive success in the global music charts, reaching #1 on the Billboard 200 once again this week with their new album Map of the Soul Persona, which was released last Friday. This is the third time that a BTS album has scored a Billboard #1 after their last albums Love Yourself Tear and Love Yourself Answer. They also look set to reach #1 on the UK official chart in what would be a first for a South Korean artist. BTS will also be participating at the 2019 Billboard Music Awards next month, collaborating with US singer Halsey. And this will be the second year in a row that BTS will be performing at the Billboard Music Awards. The group has also been nominated in the Top Duo Group category and as well as in the Top Social Artist category. BTS also recently held a press conference where they mentioned the Billboard Music Awards and how much love they have received from their fans. Take a listen.
To be honest, I want to say that we want to receive awards in both categories, but realistically, I'm not sure whether that will happen. But hopefully, we can win an award in one of those categories.
Although we speak different languages, we want our fans to know our true feelings through the stories and songs that we show on stage.
And BTS were also on Time magazine's list of 100 most influential people of 2019 in the artist category.
Well, BTS continues to make history with their smashing albums, but we can't leave out the other K-pop stars who are also making big on global stage.
Yes, you're right, Taeyeon. And there are other K-pop stars such as Blackpink and NCT 127 who have made an impact on the global stage recently. K-pop girl group Blackpink made history by being the first South Korean girl group to perform at the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival. They will also be appearing on Stephen Colbert's CBS talk show on Thursday local time. And their new single, Kill This Love, entered at #41 on this week's Billboard Hot 100 chart, becoming the highest charting single ever by a K-pop girl group. It also debuted at #24 on the all-genre Billboard 200 chart. And another boy band, NCT 127, will also appear on ABC's Good Morning America to promote their tour of 11 North American cities, which kicks off on April 24th.
Well, these groups are also undoubtedly showing impressive performances overseas, and I'm a fan of Blackpink myself. Now, what are some of the knock-on effects of K-pop's popularity?
Well, that's a good question, Dan. With the popularity of K-pop, and especially with BTS, this success has been trickling over on the Korean economy. With global awareness of BTS, more foreign tourists are visiting Korea, and exports of Korean consumer goods are increasing as well. The impact of BTS on the Korean economy last year was estimated at $4.93 billion, which is about 26 times the average revenue of a local mid-sized firm. And according to eBay Korea, BTS marketing is on the rise. Items such as fashion accessories, carrier socks, and mobile phone accessories that are the same design as those worn by BTS members are a big hit. In the 3 days after the release of their latest album, sales of BTS-related items surged up by 50%. And 34% of those purchases of K-pop-related items were from customers in the United States.
$4,930 million, about 26 times the average revenue of a local mid-sized firm. That is quite a huge contribution to the Korean economy. And it seems like BTS and other K-pop groups are really contributing a lot to our economy. Now, can we expect this unprecedented trend to continue?
Yes, we're looking at the impact of BTS. The group has already been given the name walking conglomerate. And their success has put many other K-pop artists in the spotlight as well. And also with the support of their huge and loyal fan base, BTS will likely to contribute to boost Korean economy, Tan.
Well, thank you so much for that comprehensive report today.
Thank you.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon has announced a big new step towards deregulation, allowing companies to run multiple types of businesses at a single factory. The measure is part of the government's so-called Allow First, Regulate Later initiative. Currently, for the most part, factories can only make what they're licensed to make. But from September, they'll be officially allowed to branch out beyond manufacturing into services. South Korea and the Philippines have agreed to pursue a bilateral free trade agreement to celebrate this year's 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations. Seoul's Trade Minister Yoo Myung-hee in Manila on Wednesday said she and her counterpart there had agreed to strengthen their ties in economy and trade. They decided to finalize their negotiations in time for November, when the ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit will take place in Busan. Korean carmakers Hyundai and Kia have started selling LPG-powered cars to the public after a change in the regulations. The models include Hyundai's Sonata and Kia's K5 and K7 sedans, which went on sale today with a range of discounts. Until late last month, only taxis and rental cars could be powered by LPG. A South Korean national sustained minor injuries on Wednesday in Greece when lightning struck near the famous Acropolis in Athens. 2 guards and another tourist were also hurt. The bolt struck a lightning rod near the ancient citadel, smashing a few windows, but no further damage was reported. That has been your 3-minute news flash.
An overcast day in Seoul meant the unseasonably high readings cooled down.
That's right, and it was quite refreshing, but I hear we should prepare for rising levels of fine dust throughout the night. For more, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Centre, as we like to do. Michelle, what's the latest?
Good evening, guys. The fine dust appears to be concentrated around the western regions tonight as yellow dust and smog enters from China, so prepare your protective mask tonight. Now, the nation's sky will be brighter tomorrow. Beijing and Tokyo are expected to be overcast, but will experience similar warm weather to Seoul in the afternoon. Now, the dry weather alerts remain in place. The east of Gangwon province is set for very strong winds of about 20 meters per second tonight, so extra care is advised for that area. Now, checking out the readings for tomorrow, Seoul will be kicking off to 10 degrees Celsius, and the southern regions will be a couple of notches higher. And as we head into the afternoon, the mercury will rise quickly in Seoul, reaching up to 18 degrees, while other areas are set to make it all the way up into the 20s. Now, we're in store for more pleasant weather. However, Jeju will see some showers over the weekend. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that will do it for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you, as always, for watching.
News in depth is coming up shortly, so don't go away.
Daily news you need to know.